Welcome to Time to Teach with Tammy, the podcast that gives tips, advice, and suggestions to teachers by a real teacher. So sit back and enjoy. And oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe. And we're back. Welcome to episode 97 of Time to Teach. Today's episode is entitled, Suddenly You're a Virtual Teacher, Now What? If you're listening to this as it's being published, you know exactly why it's being published. If you're listening to it in the future, perhaps you do not, and I will go ahead and explain. Currently, as I'm recording, we are going through our COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of schools are now resorting to virtual learning and virtual teaching. Some schools are just shut. I happen to be in a school that is virtual learning for the next 2 weeks. We still have 2 weeks until spring break. So suddenly we had to come and get our things and prepare and begin teaching the next day. So the things we do, right? The things that happen. So I am figuring this out as I go. I do not have all the answers currently. Never will I ever have all the answers. But I'm figuring it out. And I wanted to put this out to share what I've learned so far. Perhaps there will be more episodes like this in the beginning. Oh, let me just quickly address. I'm sure if you listen to Time to Teach regularly, you may have noticed that there's been a slight delay in the uploaded podcast. I addressed that a while ago and said I was going on a 2-week basis, so every 2 weeks. That's because I'm preparing for a big move, and I just have a lot going on. And because since I'm moving, I'm also job hunting. It's a lot, and I'm moving countries, so we're not talking about I'm moving down the road. It's not quite like that. So that just kind of occupies a lot of my energy and everything. So I went to 2 weeks basis. Having said that, it's been, I think, even longer than that, just because I got sick for a while and I was recovering from that. And then this whole thing hit, and it's just been a lot. So as I had previously said, right now, during the time that I'm at least at publishing every 2 weeks. And right now in this time, I can't even guarantee that, but just stay tuned. Published shows come. I'm just going through a time that I just need. I just can't keep up. This is just not a priority right now because I have so much going on. And I know that you guys understand because this is real life, the real world. And I always say, having breaks in podcasts for me have always been nice because sometimes I get very much into a podcast and it's hard to keep up with consumption. So it's nice to be able to have that break and consume other podcasts or focus on other things. So I just wanted to get that out there. Okay. So suddenly I am a virtual teacher and I've not done that before. And it can feel very frightening because you're just kind of like, what? What does that look like? What does that mean? Does being a virtual teacher mean I'm only posting things online? Do I have contact with my students? Am I supposed to be teaching them virtually live? Am I posting lessons that I've previously made? There's so much that goes into it. And I'm sure the other thing to keep in hand is that your particular school may have specific expectations regarding those points. So obviously when I'm saying, you would obviously want to make sure it aligns with what your school is telling you. But today I'm just going to go into some of what I'm doing. So first thing is, if you happen to have a chance to be in your school to get some of your materials, obviously that's very helpful. Some schools are completely shut down. Some schools, teachers had enough time to grab things. In some schools, teachers had no time. So it really kind of depends. Obviously, as we know, if you can have materials, that would be very helpful. I grabbed some books for read alouds. I grabbed some math manipulatives, like some cubes, some counters. I got some dice. What else did I get? Obviously, my teacher edition books. Later, I thought I didn't grab any mentor texts for reading, and I grabbed the read alouds. But a lot of times I use separate text, like a mentor text, to demonstrate a reading skill. And same is true for writing. I have a mentor text for writing. I didn't grab those things. Didn't think of it. It's hard to think of all those things when I had a whole day to do it, so that was kind of nice, but I still, for whatever reason, that's never crossed my mind. But that's okay. There's a lot of resources online. It's not the end of the world. But just if you are able to, at this point, I don't know, probably not, but you have materials, of course. Having materials are always nice. Okay, essential things. I think this is obvious, but I feel like I have to say it. You need some type of electronic equipment, like a computer or laptop. Thinking about having an external microphone. Just that kind of beefs up the audio quality. I do have an external microphone, and I got this for podcasting. Is it the best one? Nope, certainly not. But I do feel like it's better than my regular computer microphone, so it works. Obviously, you need a camera because you're going to be probably making teaching videos, so you need to have a camera for that. Most laptops have that right on the device, so that's not something you have to have separately, but just thinking about that, is there a camera? Because that is going to be something that's quite important. And then in terms of reaching out, Zoom, I think at this point, maybe everyone in the world knows of Zoom. I didn't know anything about Zoom until just a few days ago, maybe a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. I don't know. It's been very recent in my life. I think it was mentioned in our staff meetings. We had a couple of staff meetings, and kind of just to discuss what this type of learning could look like, in anticipation that this is probably what was going to happen. So I heard about Zoom, but I don't think even at that point I had ample time to play around with it. Played around with it on the weekend when I knew we were going to this kind of new e-learning format. And then you learn as you go. You jump into it. I was somewhat frightened of it at first, but now it's kind of like the best thing in the world. So I really kind of like that. I've had lots of meetings with the grade level on Zoom. That has been very nice. Also grade level leader meetings on Zoom. And at this point, I've done a lot on Zoom, so we will talk about that. So those are kind of the essentials. Okay, so let's kind of get into what are some of the things that you can do and how you can make this work. First of all, having a schedule is going to be very necessary. And I can say this, I am still struggling to come up with a feasible schedule. So as I've started, we basically set a school, like we need to have at least 2 hours that are office hours that are open for parents to work with students, making sure that we're making contact with students in Zoom. So it's not just like, hey, my office hours are open. It's that, but also like really trying to schedule students during that time. So it's a little, a little more active. So I kind of started that way. The very first day that I launched it, I did not schedule students for my office hours because I was still trying to figure Zoom out. I had my office open and I sent the parents the link and said, I'd love for you to stop by so that we can, check in. And I didn't get anyone on the first day. And I'm thinking that it was because parents too were a little unsure, like, what is this Zoom thing? And what do I do when I check in? It was very unclear, I think. And I think parents were reluctant because they just didn't know. They were feeling the same things that we were feeling, like, I don't really know how to do this. I have an office hour. What do I do with my office hour? Like, everything's so unclear, and we're figuring it out, and we're nervous to try things. So first day, I did not get anyone, but I was getting lots of emails, and I know that parents were contacting my TA, and some of them were wanting to do like a FaceTime, and I told my TA, I'm sorry, but I just can't have that happening. First of all, it's so new. I'm figuring it out. My TA certainly, she doesn't know fully everything because I'm still trying to implement it, and I can't really guide her until I have it figured out. So there's no way I can have parents contacting her. And let me explain why that would be, because she is a native Spanish speaker. So a lot of times it's kind of normal that we get parents who might reach out, even though I speak Spanish. It's not my native language. And I just find that parents will naturally go to her sometimes, not everyone, but like a few ones who might feel a little more comfortable or feel like, I don't know, that's very common here. That happens with her TAs. So I was like, no, they have to come to me. They know that if it's a language issue, they can speak Spanish with me. They know that they can ask me the questions, and as a classroom teacher, I need them to do that. And I really want to get away from them trying to use other programs and other formats. So we're not using FaceTime, we're using Zoom, and I need them. It will be very easy if we let everyone use the way that they want. Then we don't have one common thing that we're using, and it just gets complicated. And I'm very much a person who follows schedules, who follows routines, who follows procedures, because it just makes it easier for everyone. So we're using Zoom, and we're using that for virtual office hours. It's great, you guys. If you're not using Zoom, I highly recommend it. Get yourself on Zoom. It's great. So do it. Do it. So the first day just basically consisted of my 2 office hours, and then the rest of my time was with basically plan for lessons and just like playing around and figuring out. Nothing really clear going on there. Then the next day I played around with so I kept my office hours. So I had 2 office hours. So to start, it was 10:45 to 11:45, and then 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Day 2 of virtual teaching included 9 o'clock a.m. story time with Miss Tammy. So I got my kids on Zoom. It was super fun. I fell in love with Zoom in that moment. I was a little bit scared, but you can mute all the participants. If you're the host, you can mute. And believe me, when you're in a class, you want to do that. You want to mute them. So that was really great. We did our 9 o'clock story time. That was excellent. So now what I'm doing is I'm keeping that. Although having said that, Friday I was in a meeting, and kind of a long meeting, so I wasn't able to keep the 9 o'clock story time. But starting this next week, I created a new schedule where 9 o'clock story time is embedded. So I've played around, and I think I have one that I think I have a good schedule to try out for this coming week. I would like to add more time. When I first tried to plan my schedule this week, it was, I think, very ambitious. And I have since revised because I got scared. So let me tell you what my schedule looks like for this week, and keep in mind it can change. 8 to 9, my planning time. So sometimes I have meetings during that time. Like I'm meeting with the grade level leaders on Tuesday during that time. So my planning time can also be used for meetings or whatever. Can happen 9 o'clock. Story time, although on Tuesday we're doing, oh, sorry, I'm saying Tuesday because Monday is nothing digital, just letting the kids catch up. So I'm not doing that on Tuesday. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it on Monday. This is starting for Tuesday. So 9 o'clock story time, 10 to 11 are office hours. So these are times that I think now that we've done this week too, parents understand more how to use Zoom. So I'm going to be very clear, like, hey, if your child is struggling in this area or they're having difficulty with this concept, please schedule a time during my office hour time so that I can work with your child on that. And I have a few kiddos who I know specifically I want to schedule to work with during those times because I've already, well, ones who are currently, I already know, they're ones who need additional support. And then I know specifically I've had a mom reach out a couple of times and she's not quite sure how to work with her child in a certain area. So I'd like to take that. I'd like to help with that during the office hours. So I'm using office hours for that. Then I have a small group. So this is the way I plan 11 to 11:40. I'm working with a small group and my TA is working with a small group. Then 12 to 12:40, I'm working with a different small group and my TA is working with another small group. This means that we get to see everyone during those times. Will all of our students show up? I can't guarantee that. And it is what it is right now. Like there are certain factors that we can't control. We are doing e-learning. It's been reported to the parents, like your child is expected to do this. But having said that, there's been a couple of students last week who I heard nothing from. So I don't know. How do we enforce that right now? There's a lot going on. I don't really know. I don't know that. And then 1 to 2, again, is my office hours. And then 2 to 2:30 is planning. And this past week, I met with my team through Zoom, 2 to 2:30 daily. We usually don't meet as a team daily, but because this is new, I just basically said, let's meet every day from 2 to 2:30 just to check in, go over, because there's so much like figuring out and sharing ideas that it's really essential right now. So we're basically meeting on a daily basis until further notice. So that is that. So having a schedule and just kind of knowing that you may have to change it, I would say don't be afraid to have to change things as you go along. And I would explain to the parents, because I've had to explain, and they understand. We're all in this together. I've explained to them, I'm having to figure this out. So I'm going to make changes as I go. As I try things, they work, they don't work, and then I'm going to change and adapt it. So that they know, and they've been very good. They understand I'm figuring this out. They don't expect me to. They understand that I've not taught virtually before, so they're being very patient as well. Like, hey, I tried this, didn't work. The nice thing about not doing it in such a public, I mean, it's not a public format, but public and so in front of our parents is typically in your classroom. You have the luxury of trying things out, and if it doesn't work, your students may know about it, but you don't necessarily have the audience of all the parents seeing you struggle through it. Right now, that's where we're at. Parents get to see all our failures, but remember, failure is part of success. It's how we get there. If you think about inventors and people who have created things, it takes time and it takes failure and it takes trying and regrouping and scrapping and doing it again. This is no different. So I think if it makes you feel better, because it certainly made me feel better, is just be very transparent about it and tell the parents, I'm trying this out. Let's see how it goes. I may scrap it. That's really important. And I would also say this, include your parents and students in this process. I've been sending out a reflection every single day and asking my parents for feedback, saying, please, please, please tell me what it is that is working for you, what's not working, what I can do. And the feedback I've gotten is they're loving the contact on Zoom. Their kids are loving seeing the other kids in our class. They're loving to see me, interact with me. They want more of that. They want guided groups. They want help with the curriculum. They don't know how to help their kids. So don't forget that you have some essential people there who can help you through this process. Students and parents, please include them. You need to know what they need from you, because you're not going to know how to fill in the gaps until you know what their needs are. What are their needs? What are their challenges? And figuring it out. Obviously, we can't please every person, but you can work together so that it at least creates something that's a little more cohesive and something that works pretty well for most of us. Never ever will we please everyone, but just getting it as a means to make it so that it's a smooth transition and it works for most of us. Okay, going back to the schedule. So I shared what my schedule will look like in this next week. Now, having said all of that, where I would like it to go, eventually I'd like to take away some of those office hours and include additional small group time, or, one-on-one time, which is the idea of the office hours. But what I'd like to double that and have then some small groups again in the afternoon to work on other concepts. As it is, let's wait a second. I don't want to jump ahead. I'm going to explain what I'm doing in the small groups. So what I'd like to do is double that. So I'm going to explain to you the first schedule that I kind of wrote out for this coming week and said, hey, that's not going to work. It's a little too ambitious for right now. This is what I'd like to work towards. So I would like to, in a perfect world, this is what it could look like. So 9:00 would still be story time, 10 to 11 would be office hours. Well, no, it would be my planning time plus office hours. My Spanish teacher is working with our students during that hour, so I can't really schedule things for my kids during that hour. Then I would move to small groups. They would be shorter time, and I'd be working with more groups, I think. 11 to 11:25, I would work with a small group. My TA would work with a small group. As you can tell, that is a shorter time than what I first had. That's because I would be seeing more groups throughout the day with this schedule. 11:30 to 11:55, I would meet with another small group while my TA meets with another small group. 12 to 12:25, I work with a small group as my TA is working with a small group. 12:30 to 12:55, I'm working with a small group. My TA is working with a small group. 1 to 1:25, recess for me. My break. I wanted it to sound cute. Miss Tammy's recess. And then 1:30 to 2:00 could be a whole group math and science lesson. That was one idea. And basically, it's not too different from the previous schedule. The main difference is I had kind of realized I didn't have planning time with my team, and we kind of need that. So it's just shortened. Yeah, I guess it's really not including. I played around with a couple schedules, so sorry, that one is not including more small group time. It's just including a whole class time. So that is another potential schedule. But I saw that I don't have the planning time, so I don't I really don't know that that one would ever work. Now, let me tell you the schedule that did include more small group time. Again, I don't know that I can work this. When I ran it past my principal, she was slightly concerned because she said I'm only getting a 30-minute break. And I guess that's correct. Don't know that I necessarily need more time than that. But I guess we'll just have to kind of figure out how that goes. But anyway, I guess as I'm looking at this, I didn't have another schedule. Just the ones that I just shared with you, those two. And I'll actually be using this week that very first schedule that I told you about. So it essentially has me and my TA working with small groups from 11 all the way up until, well, almost 1 o'clock. So 11 to 12:40, we're kind of rotating between groups. So that's it for my schedules, but I'm kind of playing around with the idea that if this goes well and I can figure things out this week, then I use that last hour, 1 to 2, instead of having office hours, I might break it up for another whole class session, or I might have designated small groups. The struggle is right now, I don't want parents to be like, oh, I have to get my kid there, into Zoom 3 times a day, because they have multiple kids, limited devices, I'm sure. So I'm just trying to play around with it and see where it takes me. So we shall see. So that's kind of an idea of how you could set up a schedule. How this is going to work is yet to be determined. As you know, I'll be seeing all of that unfold before my eyes this very week. Okay, now in terms of what will I actually be doing with kids? My goal when the kids are in my group, I want to include reading and writing. So that either looks like, because I have 40 minutes, I might actually be able to do some reading and some writing. So I'm planning on maybe some guided reading. We have Raz Kids. That's a great online source of leveled books. Obviously, they're digital books. In a classroom, I would prefer paper books, but the situation. So I'm thinking about maybe doing some guided reading groups for that time. And then either do 1 day reading and then the next day writing, or because it's a 40-minute block, I may be able to do reading and then some writing. And then my TA, what I'm going to have her doing, I think, is word work with them. So that's the plan, man, for right now. I don't know how that will. Ideally, I'd also like to include some math time, but that's what I'm thinking. That 1 to 2 o'clock hour, instead of being office hours, maybe designated small groups for math. I don't know. We'll have to see. But that's kind of an idea of things that we could do. So that's pretty much what we're looking at. I did also want to include some resources you might go to. Like I said, Raz Kids is great. Getepic also has online books. I use it in the classroom. My students haven't used it yet. I usually introduce it when we start to do a research unit, just because at that point they usually start to burn out over Raz Kids. But I think I'm going to introduce it now. I just don't want it. I'm going to wait until Tuesday because it's a lot of new things for parents. So, really don't want to overwhelm them. Vooks, I just learned about. A colleague told me about it yesterday. So that's online digital books, and they're animated even. So they're really cute and fun and quality books. Really, really good. And right now they're offering a year worth of free, you get a year's worth of free access to it. So set up an account for free and you get it for free for 1 year. That was really hard to say. Something that I just had heard from another colleague on my grade level on Friday, Lalilo. I don't know. I'm checking that out. There's so many resources. what I'm starting to do is write them down to track it all. Teach Your Monster to Read is one that we use at the beginning of the school year, but I might remind parents and students of that because those who have not done it might be a great time for them to get on there. So those are some resources. There's so many sites right now that are offering things for free. So you kind of need time to play around with it. That's what I'm doing this weekend. And also Monday, we have an unplugged day. So we're only offering our office hours and kind of like not revamping, but just looking at how we can more streamline this. Seesaw. What is wrong with me? Seesaw is life. If you're not on Seesaw, get on Seesaw. It's an app that allows, it kind of started, it was like a way to do a digital portfolio. Kids can take pictures of their work. They can make videos, but it's so much more than that. You can also now as in probably the last couple of years, you can leave activities. So it's a great way to set up a digital classroom. I love it. I'm in love with it. You can interact. You can leave videos. You make videos and leave it. I think you have a 5-minute time limit, but it's perfect. Screencastify to record videos. Screencastify, I've been using that also. I make videos sometimes for a team, especially if it's new teachers and I need to do like a video tutorial. That's just kind of nice to have. What else? I'm sure there will be more to go, but those are definitely the go-to ones that I can think of. I know that some teachers use iExcel for math concepts. I've heard people with mixed emotions. That can be tricky if a student doesn't pass a certain number and then they have to do it all over again. There can be some frustration. So I don't really know that I'm truly how I feel about that. Well, I know that I feel conflicted right now in terms of where we're at. It might be great regularly on a regular basis. I don't know, but it is another resource that's out there. Starfall. Can't think. I'll try to include these in the show notes. And if I think of anything else, I will definitely include that in the show notes too and update the show notes as I go. The last thing I want to say is other things to think about what you can do with your class on Zoom is not everything has to be academic. You can also include some really nice just like get-togethers. We're kind of brainstorming that we might have our activities teacher set up some guided activities. So like art. I don't know how PE could, I'm sure you could get some movement in there. Science, like some really cool guided things where you're virtually kind of showing and guiding, because those are the things that will also get the kids doing something a little bit different, and it's not such a cognitive demand on them, and it takes some of the heavy load off of the parents. It's like, okay, they have something that they're doing, they're enjoying, it's unique, it's novel. Their kids get to see teachers who they're familiar with, so it's fun and it's nice. So I'm also trying to think about how I can do more of that. And I'm so excited, you guys. I am so excited. We're going to do a doodle and sketch session this Friday. My kids do not know yet. The parents do not know. I am planning it as we speak, but you might have heard, so maybe I'll link it, my sketchnoting episode with Carrie Baughcum. She's a teacher from Illinois. Yes, I will link that info. But I connected with her a couple of years ago online through Twitter, and I've stayed connected. She hosts a doodle and chat session live on YouTube every Saturday, 9:33-ish Central Time. Join us to know what that ish is all about. And she actually offered that she would be willing to run a session with my kids. So they don't know yet, but they're going to get to do some doodles. How fun. I'm so excited. It's awesome. Anyway, so thinking about what else can we do? It doesn't have to all be academic. I'm actually thinking, since we're in a garden unit, I may have it take the theme of gardens just to keep it also academic. So there's lots of ideas. I'm super excited about this. Lots of fun ways to connect with them. And I think that's part of it. How do you connect? How can we stay connected and part of their life? And that's what you wanted. That should be number one, is like keeping that connection, having some kind of where they can see your face and they can interact with you. I think that's going to help in this time. It's helpful. Okay, that's it, you guys. I don't know if this is providing much of anything because I'm still figuring out, but I did want to share with you what I'm doing, and just, because some of you are on spring break and you're planning right now. So I want to get this out. So that's it. I'm sure I'm going to be keeping you guys updated as I go and figure this out. I really am hoping that my content can help you in some way. I'd love to hear from you also. If you're doing things, please share. Let's be a community that reaches out. Like I've been seeing, that's the great thing during this time. That's difficult, but I've been seeing communities reach out and help each other. It's amazing. It's made me just really appreciate that even in times that are super difficult and hard, we can come together and be that collective brain that helps each other. And it just makes me feel so happy that we have such an amazing community. And I think in the end, we're going to be stronger and we're going to be better for this. So I'm not doing wins and fails this episode. There's too much going on. Let's focus on this. But I would love to hear from you. If you have ideas to share, if you have questions, hey, maybe we can plan a Zoom session and brainstorm. I don't know. Like, let's do something. I'm excited about the possibilities. So the best way for you to get a hold of me is tweet. I'm on Twitter. My handle is at TammyJ123. That's at TAMIJ123. Until next time.
Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Before you go, don't forget you can catch our show notes online at www.timetoteach.libsyn. That's libsyn.com. We're also on Facebook at Time to Teach. Don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Teachers for Effective Curriculum. And if you're an educator with your own podcast show, I invite you to join our brand new Facebook group, Teachers Who Podcast. Let's grow a community where we can network, problem solve, and discuss anything and everything podcast related. I'll see you there.